Good evening. Welcome to the City of South Miami annual State of the City Address. My name is Bill Duquette. I have the honor of being the new CEO of South Miami Hospital. I've been here about 4 months, and it is really an honor to once again host the State of the City Address here. And it's really fitting, I think, to have for Mayor Stoddard his 10th State of City Address, which I think is phenomenal in this day and age. So, Mayor, congratulations on that. I'd like to invite up, first of all, I wanted to thank the great jazz band from South Miami Middle School. You guys did a phenomenal job. Wonderful. Excellent. I'd like to invite Bishop Joshua Carey up for the invocation. Sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you would kindly stand with me for just a brief moment as we go into a time of prayer. You would bow your heads with me today. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight with a heart of thanksgiving, with a heart of praise. We thank you, O God, for this is the day that you have made. We will continue to rejoice and to be glad in this day. Thank you, Lord, for your grace and your mercy that are new to us every morning. We thank you, O God, for your blessings upon us and upon this great city of South Miami, the city of pleasant living. We thank you, O God, for the leadership of this great city of South Miami. And Lord, we ask you to bless our mayor and our commissioners, bless our city managers, bless our attorney. O God, bless our city clerks and all those who work in this area. We ask that you, Lord, to give them your guidance, give them your wisdom, give them your understanding, your knowledge. Give them new visions, oh God, visions on top of visions and insight for this great city as they lead us here in South Miami. We ask you today, oh God, our Father, and we thank you for our police chief and for all of the police officers who serve this city, who protect and serve this awesome city with great courage and with great integrity. We ask you to keep them, Lord, and dispatch your angels now to encamp around about them as they continue, Lord, to serve and protect this awesome city. We pray right now, God, for our city, South Miami, that you'll continue to bless us, Lord God, continue to strengthen us, continue to lead us and guide us. These blessings we ask in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. If you could obviously stay standing and face the flag and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. And if you can still stand, Charles Benitez, can you come up and lead us in the national anthem? Oh, first of all, I'm sorry. I was remiss in having the honor guard come on. Sorry about the police department honor guard. Please present colors.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you, Charles. Wonderful. Please be seated. Yeah. Now we have the pleasure of listening to another number from the South Miami Middle School Band under the direction of Francisco Williams. Please. Another round of applause for you guys. Want to take a second and introduce Irene Cicada from Congresswoman Donna Shalala's office. Irene, stand up. There we go. Yay, Irene. Thanks for coming tonight. Also recognize the former mayor of the city of South Miami, Mary Scott Russell. Mary. And then I just wanted to also acknowledge Mariano Martinez, who's the new chair of the chamber. Mariano, hey, thank you. Now we're going to have a short video presentation from the city of South Miami. While we're pulling up the video presentation, I just wanted to take a second and acknowledge Chief Landa and the great City of Miami Police Department that's here. Guys, thank you guys for coming. Sure, and I'd like to acknowledge all the city employees that are here. You guys, can you stand up, all the City of Miami employees here? Thank you guys for the great work you do. South Miami, what did I say? Still Homestead. Yeah, South Miami employees, great. There we go. And without further ado, great presentation. I can tell you, we had our South Miami Hospital retreat last month, and city official came and kind of gave us an update of what's going on. There's a lot of exciting things happening in the city of South Miami. So I have the honor to introduce the mayor. Mayor Stoddard was first elected in 2010 and is currently serving his 5th term as mayor. It's the only, I believe, the only mayor in South Miami to have 5 consecutive terms, which is a great thing for the mayor. In 2015, he was appointed by the White House to the Governance Coordinating Committee of the National Ocean Council, where they developed national policy for sea level rise, which is a timely issue now. 2016, he was named by Politico magazine to the Politico 50 Guide to the Thinkers, Doers, and Visionaries, Transforming American Politics in 2016, another great honor. He was given the Green Municipal Official for 2016 award by the Florida Green Building Coalition. The Miami New Times named him the best politician of 2017. Dr. Stoddard has been a professor of biology at FIU, as probably all know, since 1992, and his most recent research work deals with mosquitoes and understanding how come the local mosquito population has become resistant to efforts to not eradicate but control. So we look forward to some good work coming out of that. As we all know, he's a huge proponent of renewable energy. I think it's very interesting, because I love to watch these reality shows, that he is able to live off the grid. His house is powered to be able to live without any municipal or any utilities, so that's great too. I think it's a great testament for all of us to aspire to. And that South Miami is the first city in Miami-Dade to commit to transition to 100% clean, renewable energy by the year 2040. I mean, I could go on and on. He was in the National Geographic, New York Times, The New Yorker, Time Magazine, The Guardian, Rolling Stone, Stern, The Board Buyer, NPR, PRI, all these radio stations, BBC, the British Broadcasting Company, MSNBC, and numerous documentaries, including National Geographic's Years of Living Dangerously, which showed in 171 countries and 47 languages, and the Discovery Channel's Mosquito, which showed in 189 countries. Under his watch, South Miami was recognized for being the top 10 cities for young families by NerdWallet, which I think is really cool and I agree with. Introducing financing so people can get solar energy and renewable energy. So without further ado, could go on and on. Mayor Stoddard.
Thank you, Bill. We got the mic? Yeah. So you saw the photograph of the day our daughter learned to fly. Well, she never came back down after that. I had some notes. I'm going to come get them. Thank you. These turn out to be useful once in a while. So, I always want to know how Sergeant Bukins manages to get his heels to click so nicely when he presents the colors. I've been wondering that for a long time, and I've never remembered to ask him, but if somebody figures it out, please let me know. Before we begin, I do want to thank our hosts, South Miami Hospital, for once again opening their doors for us and putting on a spread and just being gracious hosts and good community partners. Also, First National Bank of South Miami and SRS Engineering helped sponsor the event tonight, and thanks to both of them. Special thanks to Sherry Kamali and Yvette Valdez for organizing this event once again. Those lovely little bamboo cutting boards are your party favors. If you leave them, I will scarfle them all up and give them out as Christmas presents. I want to thank my wife, Gray, for a lovely dance. We've been doing this dance for 10 years now, and it's been a wonderful partnership. When I first got tricked into running, I said I couldn't possibly run for mayor unless my wife was on board. And Brian Beasley and Oliver von Gundelach were out of the house like a shot, and they ran over and took 45 minutes to convince Gray. And she came back in and said, Phil, think what we could do. And we've done most of it. It's been wonderful. Once again, I want to thank Irene Sakato, who's representing our Congresswoman, who has, Donna Shalala has turned out to be a wonderful partner. And she's always very open and receptive and includes the city in lots of things. She's going to be giving a presentation at City Hall later this month, so I hope you all come and it's going to be a town hall, actually, and it'll be advertised on the website, so you can come and see that. So what has made South Miami special, in addition to this parrot in the backyard, has been the high level of citizen engagement. I was at the Livable Cities Conference in Medellin, Colombia, earlier this year, and they talked about City 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0. And the progression from 1.0, which is just getting the darn thing to work right, up to 4.0 is how you bring citizens into the process. And there are cities in the world who've gotten very, very sophisticated at it. We have a lot to learn from them. We're not there yet. But it's something we can aspire to. But we have a lot of city boards. We have the Board of Trustees of Police Officers, the South Miami CRA Community Redevelopment Authority, the CRA Advisory Board, the ERPB, the Environmental Review and Preservation Board, the Health Facilities Authority, the Historic Preservation Board, Parks and Recreation Board, the Pension Board, the Planning Board, Budget and Finance Committee, the Green Task Force, and Urban Landscape Committee. If you're on one of those, please stand up and get recognized. We have a lot of civic organizations that contribute to the public sphere. First National Bank of South Miami, which always helps with the Elves Parade, along with Mary Scott Russell, who she and Veronica worked for years to keep that afloat when the city wasn't quite pulling it. And so now it's a partnership, and everybody works together to make it happen. But the American Legion Arts South, Chamber South, the Concerned Clergy and Citizens Coalition, Elks Club, Fellowship House, South Miami Hospital, and Baptist South, the South Miami Neighbors Association, the South Miami Rotary, Team Footworks, Volksblast, and Das Renntreffen, which does the porch event. They all contribute, and they all make the city a better city. We have several members of the commission here tonight. Josh Liebman sends his regrets, but he has some things he wanted me to say on his behalf. But I'll call up the commission members, Vice Mayor Harris, Commissioners Welsh and Gill, in a few minutes if they want to say a few words. But first I wanted to just give a special thanks to the departments, the staff, and the department directors who have just done a wonderful job making this a great city. First of all, City Manager Stephen Alexander, who's been here now, since 2012, I believe, is when he first came in. And even before he was working here officially, he was helping me get the pool back on track. And Stephen, it's just been a wonderful partnership. And the reason this has been 5 terms is because you agreed to stay if I agreed to stay. And it's just been, I've learned a lot from you. And some people don't know about Stephen, but he worked for the Department of Environmental Protection, writing the state's water policies back in the day. So he gets me. He absolutely gets me. And he's done a lot of good things while he's been here. Deputy City Manager Sherry Kamali. Everybody loves Sherry, but not everybody realizes she also covers code enforcement and public works. Sherry's an engineer by training, and if we're fortunate, she'll be our next city manager when Stephen retires. The applause is appropriate. Nikki Payne worked as a deputy city clerk, and then when Maria Menendez retired, we did a national search And we hired the best in class, and it was Nikki by a long shot. But looking at the people out of the area, the next one on the list was Shantae Dabney, who's our deputy city clerk, and Nikki had the discretion of hiring who she wanted, and she hired Shantae. So we're very pleased that she did that as well. Our city attorney, Thomas Pepe, may be the hardest working city attorney in all of Miami-Dade County, if not the universe. Very appreciate his tenure and his persistence and his just unbelievable work ethic. I hear from him at all hours, on all days. I don't know that he ever sleeps, but he does climb trees to put up Christmas lights. Our no longer new, but now increasingly experienced CRA director, Evan Fancher, has done a wonderful job. Evan really got things working, the CRA working for the city very, very well. And we're now looking at an extension of the CRA and a geographic expansion of the CRA. And this will be the engine for the resurrection of our downtown. So please give Evan your support when the time comes around for this. He has a lovely staff, James McCants and Lorraine Council, who we appreciate tremendously. Victor Citarella is an interesting one because Victor and I fought like cats and dogs when he was at FIU. And when I came here, I came with an open mind, and Victor has been wonderful. He always tells me exactly what he thinks. He still doesn't hold back on me, but Victor gets it right. And he makes a point of getting it right. He's a consummate professional, and I've heard wonderful things about the building department in South Miami ever since Victor took over, and I have to say I appreciate that very much. So thank you, Victor, for a good long run with me there, and you've outlasted me. Alfredo Riverall, our finance director, came in 2010, and he had quite a mess to clean up in terms of the city budget, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But Alfred has stayed with us. He's also become a favored instructor at FIU, so he not only practices what he practices, but he preaches what he practices. And his students really like him. I see him at graduation sometimes. So he's really, he's managing to do both. Steve Kulik, our award-winning purchasing director, has done some really innovative things while he's been here, as well as just managing to bring in our various purchases and contracts under budget. So the fact that we have money to put into purchase parks, to put into our hurricane emergency fund, is because of his efficiency in terms of being able to get contracts competitively bid or find the appropriate piggybacks that bring in our goods and services at a very good price. And he's done so consistently, and we're all in better shape for it. So thank you very much, Steve. Samantha Fraga Lopez runs our HR department. And it's really nice to finally have a really good professional running HR. It's important, and she's got wonderful background that allows her to really do this well, and the right personality and the right knowledge and the right work ethic, and it's just come out very well for the city. So Samantha, we're really glad you're here. Parks and Rec was a bit of a disaster when I came in, and it stayed a bit of a disaster for a while, and finally Stephen Alexander hired a professional Parks and Rec guy, Quentin Pugh. And Quentin really knows what he's doing, and he has professionalized our parks program. There is always a rationale for what happens. It's always well thought out. There's all kinds of contingencies that have been worked out. He also hired well. He hired Jamie Adams, who likes to stay out of the limelight, but she's very good. And so we've really got a very good team in Parks and Rec as well. Jane Tompkins is our planner. Jane has a legal background, which is very helpful as a planner. She came to us from Coral Gables, where she trained under the best. And she has a very gentle demeanor about her, but she knows a tremendous amount about what she does. And she is, despite her sort of gentle ways, she's a sharp and deep thinker. So when Jane tells you that it's not clear what to do, it's because the rules are ambiguous. If she tells you this is what the rules say, it's because they do. But beyond that, she genuinely understands how cities work. And people need to pick her brains more because she knows a lot more than she'll tell you unless you draw her out. So please do that. She works with Marcus Lightfoot and Lourdes Cabrera, who really, they form a wonderful team over there in planning and zoning. And they all have their specialties. And if I remember right, Lourdes actually sort of redesigned the Madison Square project to get more windows into the rooms. So that was a nice thing that she was able to do because of her background in architecture. Zach Costner has worked for us in sustainability and grants, and you'll see some of his handiwork a little later on. Chief Renee Landa is maybe the best loved chief of police in Miami-Dade County or anywhere. And Renee and his team, you guys are great. It's a pleasure having you looking after our safety, but also working with you, joking with you, and just being part of your team in some respects. After Hurricane Irma, Gray and I went for a walk, and we were several blocks away from Chief Landa, but we recognized him instantly because of his hand gestures while he was talking to a resident. He is Mr. Congenial, and you can just literally, you can spot him from blocks away by his outgoing personality that shines that distance. John Reese is our Public Works superintendent, and John gets it done, and he gets it done with a smile. Again, after Hurricane Irma, I saw John come roaring out with the chainsaw, covered in wood chips, roared through the stuff on the street and roared off to get to the next street. Just remarkable. But your team, John, is just continues to do good work. I continue to hear from the residents, and you guys make everybody look good. So thank you for that. Aurelio Carminatis is our chief engineer. Have you noticed that things tend to work in South Miami? That the stuff we build doesn't have to be rebuilt? Thank Aurelio for that. He really has done a very good job of getting things done right the first time. So we've had a few notable things this year. Probably the most notable is that Shops at Sunset is approved for redevelopment. This is absolutely huge. This is on the east side looking west into South Miami. There's going to be a nice public open space in there, and we're really just waiting for them to get underway. One of the other biggies was that Josh Liebman managed to get the president of Colombia to come to South Miami. I think it's the first time we've had an official visit by any president, much less one from another country. And President Duque of Colombia was there for the inauguration of a Colombian sculpture garden. As you may know, Josh Liebman spearheaded the initiative to be a sister city with Medellin, Colombia. And it's a lovely city. Gray and I and our daughter went down there for vacation, had a very nice time. But it was really an honor to have a president come and visit South Miami, and so Josh is to be thanked for that. And he had a couple of other things he wanted me to point out. And let's see, I think I wrote these things down somewhere. But the gist of it was that Josh, as you probably know, was the impetus behind our city branding, the lovely blue street signs that allow us for the first time to be able to see the street numbers when we're driving. The welcome sign that you saw and the people liked so much, and the initiative to get a logo. But he just also wanted me to mention that he very much supports us keeping an affordable grocery store in South Miami. So at this point, I'd also like to invite up Vice Mayor Walter Harris. Walter, would you like to come up and say a few words? Well, I tell you, Walter has been on the commission as long as I have, and it's been I don't know how many times we've sat together. Maybe you've counted.
When I'm finished, it'll be a dozen years. But first of all, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for making me the second most powerful person in South Miami. Actually, I have a lot of experience for the last 25 years. I've been the second most powerful man in my house. So I can deal with this. At the turn of the century, about year 2000, I was the president of the South Miami Homeowners Association, and the vice mayor, Frank Cusiquia, if any of you remember him, said to me, you know, there's no place to go in South Miami but up. And I pointed out that he could go to downtown Miami, he could go to Brickell, or he could go to New Jersey, if that's the way he wants to go. But now we're forced to recognize that up seems to be the happening here. I personally am not in favor of up to the sky without reason. So anyway, to make a long story short, the city of South Miami needs to have a real workshop with the residents, not with developers, but with the residents. There's an issue that needs to be explained, and this isn't the place for me to explain it, but I do have a plan. In any event, thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and should I invite Bob up?
Invite Bob.
Bob? All right, give him that.
Thank you very much. Besides the option of going up, I understand that we can go out. The neighborhood, which is called the South of Fuchs Park neighborhood, has petitioned to become part of the city of South Miami. And recently, the neighbors who live in the county around Red Road and 58th Terrace to Southwest 60th Street, where they wanted to do a 7-story, 600-bedroom dorm, they liked how South Miami stood behind them. And at Community Council 12, we got a unanimous vote that that dorm should not happen next to a single family and next to a duplex zoned neighborhood. So yes, there is a possibility of going out. Whether or not the voters return me to office in February, I'd like to thank everybody, because the last time I was on a team was the high school swimming team, and that was mainly just individual events. And I've been an army of one in construction until the recession hit, and then I became a commissioner, and I joined a team. So it's great to be on a team, and you know, if I can't get the job done, I can always defer to somebody that's capable of getting the job done. So thank you all very much. And now a brief word or two from Commissioner Lewis Gill, my neighbor. Southwest 64th Court, the name of our street the nickname has always been Commissioner Lane for all the elected officials and board members that we've sent to the city of South Miami. Thank you.
Mayor, can you come up here? Thank you. I'm going to be very brief. I want to thank South Miami Hospital for hosting this. It's a beautiful, as usual, a very beautiful event. But the main reason I'm here is because I want to shake your hand after 10 years of service to the city of South Miami.
Thank you.
It's been an honor to serve with you, and I recognize your service. Don't always agree with you, but you have handled and evolved in the last 10 years, and have really moved the city forward. And I thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I'll turn it off. So each member of the commission has done some special things while they've been here. Walter Harris was the one who proposed that we divide Florida in two. And we should have divided it in 5, because that way we'd have wound up with 10 state senators and 5 Floridas, which Florida really is. And that initiative hasn't gone anywhere, but he also proposed that medical marijuana be legalized. And you'll notice today it is legalized. And so he was successful in that regards. Bob Welsh committed himself to single-handedly reforesting the city. And I wished he'd kept track of how many trees he has grown and planted. But little tree.
Clint Eastwood and Dirty Harry. Did he fire 5 shots or 6 shots? I really can't remember.
Well, Bob has planted many hundreds of trees, if not thousands of trees by now. A good day, Bob comes in and says, "It was a good day, I got 3 trees in the ground." And he does that every day. It's amazing. And now he's having filled up the city with live oaks. He's now threading Dade County pines in between them, and we're just going to have a beautiful forest someday. Commissioner Gill he took on as his special project getting us a bridge over US 1, which is no mean feat. It's difficult to situate, it's difficult to fund, so he didn't take on an easy project. But he's hopefully persistent, and I am absolutely counting on you, Louis, to make this happen. So thanks for the good partnership. And no, we don't always agree, but we always find a way to keep going forward. And sometimes we circle back and find innovative ways to get the things done that we didn't understand the first time around. Somewhere's my little advancy thingy. So Madison Square. Madison Square is one of those things that has been 30 years in the planning. Originally proposed by Dr. Joyce Price, the idea was to reinvigorate the heart of the African American community. The city was, of course, redlined, like all southern cities were. And when the Civil Rights Act was enacted, much of the talent in the African American neighborhood, teachers and civil servants, could live anywhere, and they had the means, and they did. And so some of the vitality left that neighborhood, and some of the businesses, it was a neighborhood chock full of businesses. Those businesses closed. And new investment didn't come in, and the housing stock didn't get renovated, the multifamily housing stock in particular. And so we lost a lot of multifamily housing. So this was an initiative to put some commercial back in, to put multifamily housing back in, and to make it affordable. And the name Madison Square was named for the town of Madison, Florida, where Marshall Williamson came. And he, of course, was the early pioneer in that community who purchased much land and then gave land for churches and schools and sold land for other houses and businesses. So it would be named in his honor. So this was sort of the impossible dream when I came on as mayor. And we broke ground on it. We were in a hurry because finally the building permits came through, and they were ready to start tomorrow. So we had an almost impromptu groundbreaking at no cost to the city. We're going to have another one. This was phase 1. We're going to do phase 2, and there'll be a proper party for that one. So everybody's invited to that. And I got to play with the bulldozer at my request, and truly broke ground. Have a big chunk of limestone in the front yard to prove it. So when I was elected in 2010, I gave myself a rather ambitious agenda, things I wanted to see us do. And you can read faster than I can speak, so I'm not going to read them to you, but this was my list. These were the biggies. And we've gotten down to the bottom one, but I'm going to talk about these this evening. This was the work list. So in terms of stable management, we've been through quite a few managers. After Charles Skur was here for several years, no manager lasted more than 3 years. We had managers who were in place for just a year, and then a few interims that were here for even less than that. So getting in a good city manager in 2012 was about impossible. If we had done a regular search, we wouldn't have gotten good people. So I had met Stephen Alexander, who was no longer working as the city manager in Cutler Bay, but he was doing some interim work down there, and was able to lure him up here as the acting city manager here, knowing that he lived in Palmetto Bay and it was a short drive home. So I figured he could go back, at lunch hour if he wanted to, and that he'd be able to take it as an interim position, knowing that if South Miami was impossible, he could leave with no dishonor. Well, my hunch was that knowing Mr. Alexander, he could actually handle the job, and that turned out to be the case. And Stephen, I don't know if you're the longest lasting city manager in South Miami, but you may very well be. You've certainly done a remarkable job here, and we've really appreciated the stability. Well, part of the state of the city is to look at the city's finances, the city was a bit of a financial disaster when I first stepped in. In fact, the day I was elected, the finance director left the job and said, "Don't call me." That didn't bode well, and there were some real little gems hidden in the finances. For instance, the financial audit had 9 unresolved findings. The prior administration had committed bond fraud on the parking garage, and somebody had tipped off the Securities and Exchange Commission and the IRS. We had to put that fire out. So there was a lot of problems. The students at FIU in finance and public administration used to use our CAFR, the audited report, as an example of how not to do CAFRs. It was really embarrassing. Riverall came in and began cleaning up this mess with the help of a very good staff and with the support of 2 different city managers. And so Alfredo, I don't know who chooses the covers for your budgets, but I wanted to have them all here. These are 10 budgets that our commission has voted for and approved in the time I've been here. And I'd never seen all the covers together, but it's a lot of reading. We have 5 people who want to run for mayor right now. I don't think any of them realize how much reading is involved. But there's weekends when I read hundreds or even thousands of pages. I plunk myself down on the sofa and I read from one end of the weekend to the other. It's an interesting job if you like to read. But our chief finance team is the city manager, the deputy city manager, and our finance director, Alfredo, who now has a beard. He looks much more distinguished. But these 3 put together every budget. It's a process that starts in the beginning of summer, and it's finally approved in the end of September. It's a long process. It's a process that involves citizens. We have citizens who are elected, or who are appointed to represent the residents as well as the elected officials who do, but they work with the staff before we even see the budget, so they get some citizen input along the entire process. And a number of people in this room have served in that capacity. So we've done some interesting things here. I've never shown these kinds of figures before, but I figure once you get to see them, you get a guided tour. So debt. Debt when we started out was about twice as high as it is now, and we've reduced it. Now these numbers here from the 2008-2009 CAFR, which is the audited financial report, you know these numbers are correct. I adjusted them by the cost of living increase so that you're looking at sort of today's dollars in both cases. You can take out inflation. It's been about 20%. So that we've paid down the debt without taking on new debt. Our net position has increased a little bit. Expenditures down 14%. Now, If anybody comes to your door running for elected office telling you that they're going to make the city more efficient and lower taxes, ask them, how many city budgets have you read? How many budget hearings have you been to? Have you sat through, and how many have you participated in? How much have you helped the city do this in the past? Do you have any idea what you're talking about? I think that's a relevant question. Expenditures down 14%. Total revenues down 13%. Now, why is that? It's because we've lowered taxes. Taxes are down 11%. That's not an accident. We've lowered them. We have gone back down to sort of our historic level of city staffing. It's a tight staff. We don't have any surplus staff to cut. We could use more positions, frankly, but everybody works hard, everybody works efficiently, and they're to be commended for that. And if anybody tells you they're going to cut the fluff out of the staff, tell them to take a hike. We have spent within our means. This is revenues minus expenses exclusive of debt. Again, audited. These are the audited numbers. We've stayed in the black consistently. This is the millage rate. Now, the millage rate's at an historic low, and you might say, well, yeah, but the property values have gone up. Yes, but so is inflation eating into those values. So if you look at the drop in the millage and the inflation and the change in property values, put everything together, as you saw, we're actually drawing less tax money in than we were before. Not by this full drop here, but by 11%. And our books do get audited. There's a referendum coming before the voters in the next election to allow us to hire auditors beyond the current 3-year maximum in the city charter. And the reason for this, if you have to explain it, is it takes about 3 years for the auditors to get good at understanding the city. And just about the time they start to be able to explain things at a much finer level of detail, we are forced by the charter to throw them out and get in new auditors. We'd like to be able to keep them for an extra year or 2 years or possibly even 3 years, and we hope the voters approve that. So if you're out in the city, please talk that one up. It'll help us. And that's a recommendation of the citizens on the audit committee. The financial security of the city is very important. When I was first running, Brad Cassell, who's worked on the pension board for many years, came to me and told me about the disaster that was looming up on the pension. Now, how many of you have gone and read the pension documents? Cassell knows them inside and out. And you can just see right here that the pension assets, and you remember we've lowered the number of employees, but the pension assets are now almost twice what they were. And that's in dollars that are adjusted by inflation. So in real dollars, we've gone up quite a bit. In U.S. printed currency, we've gone up we've more than doubled. We didn't used to have an emergency fund. All the money was sitting around in the unassigned general fund balance. The Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, recommends we put 25% of our operating expenses into the emergency fund. Mr. Riverall recommended we do that, so we took some of that money out and put it in here, so we now have a fund for hurricanes that doesn't get spent on anything other than emergencies. So we're in a much better position if there's problems, and in fact, we've had to use that money. Public safety is maybe the most important thing that a city does. Pinecrest incorporated because they wanted their own police department. So the average crime rate in South Miami when I was elected had been pretty much flat for the previous 20 years. And so when I was elected, being a good academic nerd, I researched best practices in policing. And what I learned was that a lot of different things had been tried. Stop and frisk wasn't working. Broken windows wasn't working. Community policing was the thing that was starting to get results in some of the cities. And so I went to the manager and the police, and I said, I want us to try community policing, and it didn't happen. We got a new police chief, and so that's how the crime had been for the better part of that's the past decade or so. The new police chief wanted to do broken windows, and the city manager wanted to do broken windows. Even though broken windows hadn't worked, I said, well, these guys, the city manager was an ex-cop, and the police chief's the police chief. I guess they're going to do what they're going to do. So they did broken windows policing. So broken windows policing is the idea that of sort of zero tolerance, that if there's a broken window, it invites more crime. So you want to just like, don't let anything happen. Just really screw things down tight. And you can see the crime rate stayed essentially flat. You know, yeah, it went up a little bit, but that's just noise, just year-to-year noise. It did not bring crime down. In 2012, we got a new city manager. And in 2013, we got a new police chief. And the manager knew my thoughts about community policing, and I think he shared them. And so they began working on a plan for community policing in South Miami. And it involved a lot of outreach. It involved designing new maps for the city. We had this zone system before, but the new policy was that officers would be assigned to specific zones. Landa calls it own a zone. And so that means that the officer in that zone works that zone every day. He's there. He knows everything in it. He recognizes if anything is out of place. It's more expensive. It's less efficient. But it's what was getting results elsewhere. A lot of good outreach. Coffee with the Cop is extremely popular. Our officers go and knock on doors and give out their business cards. Everybody in the downtown loves the officer who's assigned to the downtown shift. Just a lot of good vibes and good outreach. And of course, you can't do it without the right police dog. So beware the Lhasa Apso. Those things are dangerous. But you can see what happened. They've dropped crime in South Miami in half. So to Chief Landa and the command staff, my hat's off to you. Thank you very much. To Stephen Alexander, thank you for making it happen. Everybody needs to thank these guys. This is remarkable. And our crime rate went down significantly in years when the crime rates in the municipalities and areas around us went up. This is not a general area trend. This is special. These guys have done a phenomenal job, and they continue to do a phenomenal job. We, fortunately, were able to resolve the contract and keep from hemorrhaging police officers. But there's one more thing they need, and that is that they need a good police station. The current building is old. It's damp because it sits on top of a transverse glade, and they didn't know about sealing concrete back when that building was made, so water soaks up through it. People go in there and say, I smell the mold. It's not a good work environment. It's also dangerous to drive out of City Hall. You've probably all noticed that. You take your life in your hands trying to pull out there. How is it for an officer who needs to get out in a hurry? And I've sort of come bicycle to car with officers on a number of occasions. They're always careful and don't run me over, but you can tell it's treacherous for them. And so they need a place they can get out of easily. 70th Street would be fabulous because it's easy access in and out. It would revitalize 70th Street. It would make the space behind Metro Rail safer. And it would put the officers closer to schools and give them quicker access to schools, which is important, as you all know, without me having to tell you why. So this is, I think, needs to be a significant city initiative to get us a new police station. And there's some good innovative ways to finance it that the city manager's been looking at, but I hope that the commission and the citizens will get behind this idea. Now, the previous city manager had come up with a way of thwarting us from getting the pool at the behest of one city commissioner. With a new city manager, we got a pool. And you saw in the presentation earlier that the community pool features very significantly in our Parks and Rec programs. And it's a delightful pool. It's magical. When you're in it, it expands out and becomes twice the size it is when you're outside of it. I don't know how they did that, but it's an amazing illusion. The Parks and Rec program has done very well. The tennis program is interesting because Mr. Pugh moved some programs in and some programs out of the city's direct supervision. He's got his reasons, and you have to talk to him about it, but he decided it was a good thing to bring tennis in. The manager agreed with his analysis, and they brought it in. And since then, we've had more money to maintain the courts, so the courts are better maintained. The program has grown, and it's revenue positive for the city. We don't aim to make money on Parks and Rec. That's not what it's about. But this program does more than pay for itself. So it's been a nice addition. And I always love that photograph of the girl in the pool. I bought my house because it was opposite a park, and I like having a park in the front yard. I like hearing the sounds of giggling and squealing children, because my own little giggling and squealing one has left. So I get to live vicariously and hear kids having a good time because I live opposite a park. But there's parts of the city that don't have a park. In particular, this area over here doesn't have a park. And it desperately needs a park. This is our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. People say, how come you do this without having a plan? What are you talking about? We have an approved plan from 2017. And the plan identified this as being an area that was lacking a park. So how about a park somewhere around there? Wouldn't that just be exactly about what we need? So we did it. The city attorney spent a lot of time making the legalities happen. The city manager negotiated back and forth and managed to get us a very nice parcel right here. John Palenchar is here this evening, has his boat parade right there every year in December. You should come to the South Miami Boat Parade. You can go all the way up to there and all the way down to there. It's great. But we're going to have a park. So we have a lease. We're leasing it back to the tenant, who will stay there for 10 months or so, which gives us about 10 months to decide what we want to do with it, how we want to design it. So if anybody's interested, speak to the Parks and Rec director about contributing your 2 cents. So I've wondered how many of us could afford, who live in South Miami, could afford to buy our house today. I don't know that Gray and I could do that on our salary. Vice Mayor Harris, could you buy your house? Yes, with your current salary? And Commissioner Welsh, are you?
Couldn't even buy it right after I built it.
And Commissioner Gill? You're priced out. We're all priced out. And it's not just us. It's everybody. It's gotten hard to buy a house in Miami-Dade County. Just, you know, it's a tough place. And so the two biggest problems in the county are bad public transit and the price of housing. Those are that's number one and number two in that order. So it's a biggie. So one of the things we did, which was historic, was we put in place the second inclusive zoning requirement in Miami-Dade County. The City of Miami did it in Miami 21. No, not Miami 21. They did it in one of their CRAs, a little bit of it. But we have now done it near our, that's the Metro Rail station there. So we've done it in sort of an almost semicircle around Metro Rail, where up to 8 stories, you have to put in 10% workforce housing. In the MU6, if you want to go above 8, if you want to go up and aspire as high as 12, you have to double the amount of workforce housing in order to get that bonus. So we finally put in place incentives, and the county has balked at doing this countywide, but we're once again leading on this issue. So that's, you know, the commission deserves a pat on the back for having the nerve to go ahead and do that. And we believe it'll work financially as well. Madison Square I talked about before. That'll be 40 units. And part of the reason people wrangled over it is they couldn't decide on the height. Turns out the height was sort of limited by parking, and we've had to even make concessions on the parking considerably. But parking seems to be the real bugaboo of doing any kind of housing. This is an interesting and an exciting one. That the public housing project in South Miami, South Miami Gardens, is well over 40 years old. It's in terrible shape. The units are moldy, they're not really fit to live in, and the county wants to replace them. But the county has a lot of things they want to replace. And one of the things that we suggested to the county is, well, why not also put in J.R. Ely School? If you're going to redevelop this, put in J.R. Ely School and make housing for teachers. You could still put in school district office buildings on the ground floor and then go up a bit and make housing for teachers, because teachers need affordable housing. Everybody loves teachers. And they not only they pushed it up to the top of their project list. It's in the highest category now for redevelopment. So we just have to do the zoning, and the county will take it from there. But it's mixed. It's going to be not all public housing. It'll be the same number, 51 units or something of public housing, but it's going to be mixed income. And there's a very important reason for this. And that is that kids who grow up in mixed income housing do better than their parents. They move up economically if they're surrounded by people of higher economic means. And so the county's got that message. The data show that it works, and that's what they want to do in South Miami. And I think it's going to be great for us, and it'll be great for people of low income in South Miami, because their kids will finally start moving upwards economically, which is what we wanted all along. When my wife said to me, Phil, think what we could do, we were thinking about sustainable initiatives. That's from the backyard. And we've done a bunch of these things. You know about our solar ordinance. We were the first ones outside of California to do it. California has now done it statewide, and other states and other municipalities are now looking at it once people have finally begun to understand what the climate crisis is about. We used our influence on the Green Corridor interlocal group to start solar co-ops here in South Florida. So I had the ability to fund those with money from the PACE program. We took our house off the grid for a couple of weeks this year just to prove you could do it. And I did a blog about this. So there's more and more people in South Miami, including some I see in this room, whose houses are powered by solar with battery backup. And so when the power goes out and you get the little notice from FPL, it's the only way you know the power's out, because your power stays on. They're going to need that in California with the outages there. We got the SolSmart Silver level on account of our solar initiatives. We got designated a Florida Green Building Coalition's Green City designation this year for the first time. This is a move in the right direction in recognition of all the things we've done. We were the first municipality in Miami-Dade County to commit to 100% renewable energy. We've gotten a lot of recognition for that. Now we have to figure out how to do it. We recently unanimously approved a new pesticide regulation ordinance. And we did this after staff had, on their own initiative, figured out how to do it. So for the past 2 years, staff has managed our public lands without synthetic pesticides. And so we codified that, put it into the rules, what we'd already been doing as practice. And so we got this note back from the leading nonprofit that advocates for this. And they said this is the strongest such ordinance in the state, and it's the one they want to use as a model for everybody else. Commissioner Welsh, I've mentioned a couple times, has been reforesting, but I wanted to just show this picture. These are his little baby pines, and he's been going out to the schools one after another and to public events and giving away pine trees and teaching people how to care for them and plant them. And so he gave me a number of pictures. This one was my favorite of the bunch. I just thought it was a very sweet picture of the kids with Bob's pines. So thanks, Bob, for that. We had a transportation plan that we worked on for a long time. We got it approved by the commission, and one of the crown jewels of that plan was a cross-town bikeway that ultimately will connect with the Ludlam Trail, but it gives people coming down 72nd Avenue protected access across to Red Road like that. And I have to say this is one of my fails because the commission voted it down, the western 3/5, because of concerns about trees that were along the swale. And I got to say, I'm not giving up because this one's personal for me, and extremely personal. That's my broken hip. And that's the break there, and those are 3 big titanium screws they used to put me back together at this very hospital. Thank you, South Miami Hospital. That was on a sidewalk that wasn't properly cared for. Bike lanes are special. Bike lanes keep you from doing things like this. But 64th Street doesn't have anything for part of it. And I know this because I drive home every day on that road. And it's just a line of cars coming westbound in the evening. And this is my former sister-in-law, who was hit by a car and killed under such circumstances. You know, there was no sidewalk, there was no bike path, there was nothing. And so, yeah, it's very personal for me. You know, from my own injury that was very serious to losing a family member. So I'm going to come back on this one, and I'm really hoping I get the support of the commission, not just to acquiesce to what I want, but to work it out and find a way to make it happen. Because we have to make it safe. You know, if we rail about traffic and how much we dislike traffic, we have to provide for alternatives. And if there's issues with trees, we have to resolve them. Commit to replacing trees, plant twice as many trees, whatever it takes. But we need that safety. Just as we're doing a bridge over US 1 for pedestrian safety, we need protected bike lanes for pedestrian and cyclist safety. This is our, you know, this is really important to us. We got some big challenges ahead, and I'm not going to be here to help guide you guys on them. So let me give you my vision of what we're looking at that's worrisome, and some possible solutions for how you guys will figure out how to get through it, perhaps. One of the biggies is that land values are flattening and projected to stay flat for a while. So wages still have upwards pressure. Miami-Dade County is a low-wage town, and wages have to come up. You already know about the mismatch between wages and housing. Wages have to come up, but housing prices are not going to keep returning us increasing amounts of revenue. So where are we going to get the revenue to pay for the increasing wages? If we don't increase the wages, we lose our good staff. We've already sort of done that experiment because of a delay in the police contract, and we saw what happened. We lost some of our best cops. So if you love the city, are you willing to see us lose our good services, or are you going to find a way to fund us? It's a conundrum, and it's a problem. And it's a structural problem. It's not our doing, and it's built into the system. And you solve it, or things crash. That's how serious it is. Oh, septic tanks, completely changing gears, but still weird stuff to deal with. Part of how a septic tank works is you flush all the stuff into it, and then it soaks out in here. And what comes out of here is phosphorus and nitrogen. Those are what's known as nutrients that will pollute Biscayne Bay if they get to it. So you don't want that stuff to get to Biscayne Bay. The nitrogen compounds, nitrate, we all know nitrate, right? Nitrate gets into the soil. If there's air in the soil, the bacteria turn it into nitrogen gas. It gases off, turns into nitrogen gas and water, which is just dandy. If the soil is saturated with water, that doesn't happen, and it flows as nitrate right into Biscayne Bay and kills the seagrass beds, over-fertilizes them, causes algal blooms. Phosphate. Phosphate comes out of a septic tank. Initially, it gets bound to the limestone rock, but once it's covered all the surfaces, it just flows clear all the way to the bay. Biscayne Bay is phosphate limited, around the margins especially. And so if the phosphate gets in there, algal blooms, and it kills the seagrass beds. And the seagrass beds are the basis for our marine economy and everything that lives in the water. So environmentally, septic tanks are the enemy. But there's another problem, and that is when the water table reaches the drain field, the toilet back flushes into your bathtub, and it's totally gross, and you move into a hotel. And nobody wants to be the mayor when that happens. So we've been working on this one. The staff priced it out. They did the engineering design. They have all the different zones ready to go. It's a shovel-ready project. It's many millions of dollars to complete. And we know that the city residents can't afford this. And it's not just us. This is a problem all over the county and a problem all over the state and a problem of every coastal state on the eastern seaboard and the Gulf of Mexico. We all have this problem. It's a big problem. So I was up in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago talking to our congresswomen, and they're interested in helping. And FEMA's interested in helping. And I talked to the state chief sustainability officer, and she's interested in helping. And the water management district is helping. Everybody needs to help, but we need to pull this coalition together and make it happen. So I hope my successors start really pick this one up and work to get the federal and state funding in place so that we can then have some city match and some homeowner match, because the homeowners still have to do the hookups themselves, to get this problem done so we stop polluting Biscayne Bay, so we save our marine economy, and so, because it also benefits everybody else. If we get this deal for us, we get this deal for everybody. And it becomes a big thing, but it's something that we as South Miami can move. Our downtown economy is very important. This is the third theme here. And so if you look at where the taxes come from in South Miami, there's residential property taxes, which are, a small fraction of our total budget. Commercial property tax is about the same size. There's other residential revenues and other commercial revenues. So the residents of the city provide this much of the total budget. The commercial sector provides that much of the total budget. Pretty important to take care of the commercial sector, pretty obviously. Now, if we look at how the money is spent, only that much here is currently spent on the commercial sector. The rest of this is spent on the residential sector. And from here all the way around to there, that's pure subsidy that the residents get. And so if there's any intention on the part of the residents to do anything that is going to restrict the commercial sector, they're shooting themselves in the foot. Because unless they want to see their property taxes go up, good luck to them. Now, raising property taxes is not an easy option. A, it's politically unpopular. B, you can only raise them 10% max under the state law. And C, the Save Our Homes Amendment in the Constitution means that the homesteaded properties taxes don't go up much anyway, the lesser of the cost of living index, or 3%, which means that the burden then falls back on the commercial sector once again, and on the renters. The renters are the most stressed of the bunch. So it's not a good solution. So the much better solution is growing the commercial sector somehow. That's the revenue. So for every time your street gets repaved, every time your trash gets picked up, every time your parks get worked on, every time the police come to your house, that's all being subsidized, meaning 62 cents of every dollar spent on your street is coming from the commercial sector. That's a huge subsidy. So if we don't take care of the commercial sector, plan on opening your wallets really wide in various other ways. You'll get taxed for everything because we have to keep the city functioning, or we could disincorporate, which is clearly not a popular idea. Now, our little downtown has some serious competition. We're here, but downtown Dadeland has improved. The Grove has come back. Miracle Mile and Geraldo are nice. Brickell has some nice restaurants. Midtown is developing. Wynwood's a lot of fun. Lincoln Road is still good. We're not alone, so we're unique, but the other areas have put a lot of investment into their downtowns and hit critical mass. One of my goals was to stabilize the grocery store in South Miami, and I have not gotten that done either, much to my chagrin. The Winn-Dixie lease is up in 3 years. The owner does not get paid enough for the land in terms of the lease. They will not renew with Winn-Dixie in this present one-story configuration. Probably get rented out for other kinds of retail, but it won't be Winn-Dixie. We will lose our grocery store. And that means the people in the apartment district to the south who can now walk to the grocery will have to take their cars to the grocery. Expect an increase in traffic downtown, in the downtown area. Not a decrease, but an increase, because people will be driving. But we can save our tax base and we can make an amazing downtown. So here's 5 things we need to do. We need to renew the South Miami CRA and expand it to the downtown. I already told you that. So be back there to help Evan make that happen. We need to increase residential housing in the downtown to guarantee the foot traffic that keeps businesses afloat while increasing the tax base and boosting the CRA revenues. Now this one is controversial because some people say, oh my God, all those people, they're going to drive on our streets. Well, 50% of those people take public transit right off the bat. They'll go to Metrorail, and they'll move there so they can. And it's a pretty quick zip out of the downtown, out 74th Street or 73rd Street to US 1. So no, they're not going to be driving into the residential neighborhoods in the south. That's a myth. Keeping a grocery store in the downtown is really important. It's important to have an affordable grocery store in South Miami. We've got a Whole Foods already. There'll be a Publix up in the Gables. But a lot of people count on there being an affordable grocery. It doesn't have to be Winn-Dixie. It could be Milam's. It could be any number of stores. But we need to have some kind of affordable grocery, preferably in the downtown, to keep people downtown fed without having to use vehicles. We need to purchase and improve the South Miami parking garage, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And what if we purchased half the bank parking lot and made it into a park? Wouldn't that be fabulous? Think about a town square down in the downtown. Wouldn't that be amazing? A beautiful forest, park with trees. You've been to Savannah, you know how they've sort of got those nice little squares? We could have one of those in South Miami. It would be incredible. It would cost us some money. But if we did that, think what our downtown could become. Right now, it's just asphalt. So let's look at some of that. So there's our parking garage. It's a big building. It looks like a cave coming into it. Nobody wants to park there. I see I'm out of time, according to Yvette, but I want water? I'd love some water, Yvette. Thank you. I'm not out of time. I'm out of water. But look at those windows. They look like little dark cave windows with a cave door. Not terribly inviting, and so nobody wants to park there. Hey, by the way, speaking of water bottles, did you see that Marco Rubio joined the Climate Caucus? Amazing. I think he needs to be commended for that. So we should buy this garage from the current partner of the city who does not manage it nicely. So I think we can, if we even have to take it by eminent domain, we could do that. But we need to have control of that garage so we can brighten it up. We can put in proper signage. We can make it easy to pay. It can be brightly lit inside. It can be painted inside. It can be clean. It can smell nice. It can be all the things it isn't. Because when I go to the Gables, I just park in the Andalusia parking garage and never think twice. I can always find a space there. It's quick. I'm in and I'm out. No big deal. South Miami needs to be just the same. People should say, I love going to South Miami because I always park in the garage. It's simple, it's quick, it's safe, it's clean. I love it. That's what you want to hear from folks. We have 2 full square blocks of asphalt surface parking lots in our downtown. What a waste. Plus, it's hot as hell. Makes a giant heat island. This would make an amazing city park, an absolutely amazing city park. It would put us on the map. And it would cool the downtown. So this is the model of how it all works. So you need residential density in your downtown. That's the foot traffic. The merchants tell me that their foot traffic is down 80% from when they first started renting their stores. That's terrible. That's terrible. They desperately need the foot traffic. And that foot traffic comes from people who live upstairs, essentially. Where should we go to lunch? Where should we go to dinner? Well, how about downstairs? So you really secure your restaurant traffic and your merchant traffic, and then that produces a critical mass, and other people start coming in. That's what the other neighborhoods are doing, and we're not. That's why they're eating our lunch, quite literally. Your property taxes go up as a consequence of that. The business tax revenues go up, and the parking revenues go back up again. And that's the city revenues that are going to keep providing the excellent services that you've come to appreciate. And we got a lot of good services. That's how you pay for it, and that's how you keep the city from going bankrupt. Geraldo and Coral Gables is a lovely spot. I mean, I took this photograph one evening. I mean, that's just really how it looked. And there's all these people down there. Where are they coming from? And I figured it out. Most of it's sort of like 2 stories, but there's this little 1-story spot, and you can just peek over the top and see those residential buildings in the back. And it's pretty clever what they did. So there's Geraldo Plaza, and it's sort of ringed by buildings, and you can see it. They did an overlay with a 50-foot maximum on it, and then they can go higher all around it. So you get this lovely pedestrian feel right down in here. Feels great, looks great, everybody loves it. but they live all around it in buildings that are somewhere in the range of 12 stories. Here's Miracle Mile. Lovely old-fashioned Miracle Mile, just sort of like it was originally conceived of, except they've now got this lovely stonework along here, and they've put in new trees, and they've got little benches, and the traffic, it's just a continuous surface here. It's very European and very elegant and very lovely, and they're killing us. We hate the Gables because they're doing so well. And they're taking our customers. How did they do this? They just keep everything low right along Miracle Mile. It's this perfect little rectangle. And then, whoop, you get outside of there, and it goes up. And so when you're in Miracle Mile, you don't see those buildings because the sight lines clear them. You can't see the buildings because they did some clever things architecturally. And this is what Victor Dover convinced the guys at Shops at Sunset to do with Shops at Sunset's redevelopment. Same trick. So here's the Shops at Sunset trick that Victor suggested. So if you're down on Sunset Drive and you look up here, you see the sky. You don't see the hotel or the residential buildings up on the north end. They're absolutely invisible. So what you see from the other side of Sunset Drive is Shops at Sunset. That's how it's going to look, by the way. They're going to put in some proper trees. I did this analysis of the Winn-Dixie. I went to the GIS lab at FIU and took a slice through our downtown. And you can see there's the trees, and there's the various buildings, Mayan Villas, Mayan Tower, the existing Winn-Dixie, Sunset Drive, etc. Here's the view from above on Google Maps. Same trick. Mayan Villas actually means that you don't typically see Mayan Tower, and between the two of them, you would never see the Winn-Dixie at 11 stories. You just wouldn't see it from the residential neighborhood. So the residences, they say they don't want this tall thing. Well, they're not going to see that tall thing. So it's possible to put a lot of residential density on that site without it becoming a visual sky blocker, at least from the south side. Basically, it's the same trick that they did in the other places. And so we still have a hard choice because the developers are telling us that they can't do it 8 stories and build us a grocery store because they don't get enough profit to build a grocery store, which takes both a high single-story building to get a grocery store and then a parking level. So that's really almost 3 levels equivalent in order to get a grocery store, and you need the profits to pay for that. So this is what we've got now, is a hot asphalt surface and a grocery store that's going to leave us. So we're in a bit of a pickle. And the commission is not yet unanimous in agreeing that we need to find a way to make this work. And I hope we can get this worked out, because otherwise we lose our grocery store and we increase the traffic of people now having to drive out of the apartment district to the south to go buy groceries. So this is sort of our path to protecting our tax base. And we can do this and keep the taxes low, or we can freeze out development and not be able to keep our downtown alive, lose our supermarket. We won't be able to improve parks or buy new parks, and we're going to have a hard time maintaining services. So the residents, think about these things. And this was a discussion that was pretty lively, and people come together, and people ultimately can make informed decisions if they're properly informed. And people ultimately did support Shops at Sunset. It took some convincing. It took some back and forth, and people had to be heard. And the developers, worked with people on that and came up with, I think, with a better plan for everybody. And when it ultimately came to a vote, the citizens were behind it. So that's this is sort of how we get ourselves out of the coming problems. We're in good shape right now, but I'm telling you, we're not going to stay in good shape unless we're able to figure this one out. So Larkin was the pioneer who came up with South Miami, and Rick O'Barry is a lovely environmentalist who's lived in the city just immediately south of the downtown. And this just wonderful sign really represents the crossroads of our past and our present, I think. And it's my favorite street sign in the city. But the kids, this is their city. This is their future. Us baby boomers are getting old. You know, we'll be fine. We got our nice houses. I've got my green backyard with 140-something bird species in the backyard and probably 120 native plant species growing back there. I live in a paradise. I don't worry about myself. I worry about the kids. You know, will the kids be able to live here? And will I still get good services when when the rest of my hair has gone gray and other people are running the city? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm really hoping that people step up and find a way to take care of our city in an era of flattening property tax revenues. And so we do need the city to adapt. There's no rule that cities cannot fail. Cities do fail. They fail all the time. I read Governing Magazine. I hear about these things. Cities fail, our city could fail, and we need to make sure it doesn't. So we need to keep the downtown competitive and protect our tax base. And obviously we need to keep the residential neighborhoods safe. That's never been a contention, and Commissioner Welch told you that we now have other neighborhoods wanting our protection as well. We need more parks, and we need to keep improving our parks. We need more affordable housing, not less. And we need to help commuters get here on bicycles and pogo sticks and anything else that doesn't involve an automobile. So we've come a long way. This is what South Miami used to look like. You don't see that anymore here. But we have a lot of opportunities before us, and we can remake our downtown. We can continue to improve our park system, and South Miami can continue to be the local leader in sustainability. The world needs it. Now, it's been the absolute honor of a lifetime to serve you and the city for 10 years. Almost 10 years ago, I said that 10 years should be enough for anybody. But we've got a lot more to do. However, that's my line, and I'm sticking to it. So thank you for your support for these 10 years, your constructive criticism, and your active participation. We can do amazing things in South Miami, and with the right leadership and the right staff and the support of our citizens, we will do those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For 10 great years in the city of South Miami and your vision for the future. In closing, I'd like to invite Rabbi Jonathan Fish up for a closing invocation. Rabbi?
Hi, good evening.
That's
That's all right. Wow. That's a high holiday season. That is a sermon. Beautiful. Beautiful. You've done a lot. Yashakoach, Mazal Tov. If you don't know what those are, you do. Great. I don't. I got to tell you, I've lived in 3 incredible cities. I grew up in Ventura, California. It's between Santa Barbara, Los Angeles. My family still lives there. It is Community 101. You get hugged by the mailman. It's not awkward. You just have to be there. I lived in Jerusalem for 2 years. I was riding my bicycle, got hit by a car. I got invited to 10 Shabbos dinners. I got invited to people's dinners at people's homes I had no idea about. Community. I'm raising my 2 girls in South Florida, specifically in South Miami, and I'm in love. I'm in love with the smiles. I've had the finest officers come to my house because my wife thought someone had broken in. I just left the door open. My bad. But they came in, checked the whole place, gave us a card with their name on it. I felt heard. I felt loved. I felt like I was part of something great. That's South Miami. So I just want to take a moment as we get ready for this great holiday of Thanksgiving. just to remind ourselves to be grateful for all the blessings we have. Maybe you're sitting around a table and you didn't know everyone's name before you sat down, but now you do. Boom, blessing. You just made friends. The fact that we're sitting in this incredible space and we've got these fine officers always watching our back, boom, blessing. Sometimes we have to be reminded to open our eyes to see the blessings, to see how wonderfully lucky we are to be living in this society, constantly moving forward. There's a Hebrew term. It's called chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, which means be strong, and may you be strengthened. As you leave South Miami Hospital, this sacred space of healing, I hope you go out, and as you see cars pulling out before you, you pause and let them go. That's a neighborly thing. Just smile at someone, make their day, and you can be the blessing. So we take a moment as we take a moment of prayer. Mekor Chayim, source of life, source of strength. We are so grateful that we get to engage and interact with not only our loved ones, but with neighbors, with individuals we meet either on the street, in passing, or in everyday life. We are grateful to you for all of our blessings, and may we all be a blessing to everyone else as we say, Amen.